Welcome to Open BXRx on BronxNet. I'm your host, Sonyi Lopez, inviting you to get social with us at BronxNet TV on Instagram and Twitter, and BronxNet Community Television on Facebook. Gun violence has claimed the lives of several young men and women of color in the Bronx and across the city. Now, through these times of civil unrest and anti-police brutality movements, our community must also focus on dismantling violence in our own streets. Bronx Rises Against Gun Violence, aka B.R.A.G, has been doing this work through community-led efforts. Joining us now to discuss is David Caba, Senior Program Director at B.R.A.G. David, thank you so much for making the time to speak to us about this important topic.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Just for those who are not familiar, can you give us a little bit about B.R.A.G and your mission? How has how many youth has B.R.A.G helped throughout its time?
So, as you said, B.R.A.G stands for Bronx Rises Against Gun Violence. It is a program of Good Shepherd Services, and we're part of the city's crisis management system. And we have served hundreds of youth since our inception in 2014. We went from one cure violence program, to 3 cure violence programs in 3 different areas of the Bronx, the West, the North, and the Northwest. We use a public health approach to dismantle the gun violence in the most impacted areas of a particular precinct. We work in the 4-6, 4-7, and the 5-2.
Gotcha. And David, what made you get into this field of work? Can you share more about your experience with gun violence and growing up in the Bronx?
Absolutely. I'm a Bronxite, born and raised. Went through the public school system. Started a gang when I was in 2nd grade. If you could do the math on the age that I was, we're talking about maybe 8 years old. And it was really survival. You had to have protection, you had to have a crew around you just to defend yourself. What got me into this work was the fact that I'm a product of the Bronx, have lived all the consequences that happen in the streets that catch up with you and swallow you whole. And most importantly, my oldest brother was shot and killed. And that had a profound impact on me, watching, him be put in the ground, seeing the effects on the family, as well as myself. This was an easy decision.
Right. I'm sorry for the loss of your brother. And, thank you for doing this work, even despite all the obstacles that you face in your personal life through gun violence and growing up in the Bronx. I want to learn why it's important that B.R.A.G is a community-led effort. So how can it be more effective than over-policing and the presence of NYPD to combat gun violence in order to establish that trust with youth? Can you tell us more about that?
Well, 100%. So this model is designed, the cure violence model started in Chicago. Obviously, we all know what's happening when it comes to shootings and homicides in Chicago over the many years. An epidemiologist, Dr. Gary Slucker, started it, and it uses a public health approach. It treats violence like a contagion. It spreads, right? So, for example, if I were to see my older brother put in some pain, and then what comes out of that is power, prestige, and profit, then guess what's going to happen? I'm going to see that. I'm going to internalize that. I, in effect, become infected, and then I start doing the same things, and guess what happens to those around me, right? So in terms of the model itself is designed to do 3 things. One is to mediate conflicts on the spot. And in these areas that we work in, the most impacted areas of a precinct in terms of gun violence and violence in general, we do hundreds a month in the sites. And so that's part 1. Part 2 is to identify the high-risk youth, because when you look at the data basically tells you that the 14 to 25-year-olds are the ones that are involved in those high-risk activities that include gun violence, right? And the third one is to mobilize the community, because the community has kind of looked at this violence problem as a norm. It just goes with the territory. It's how it is. For example, what happened with Junior, people videotaping it instead of trying to help him. See, so we use credible messengers to deploy this model, and it has worked to a tremendous success, hence the expansion of our programs. We also have a slew of other initiatives that help the youth.
Right. David, I also want to talk about your thoughts on the recent spike in gun violence within the Bronx and nationwide. you recently participated in a rally with Save Our Streets following the tragic shooting of 17-year-old Brandon Hendricks. Can you just tell me a little bit more about that?
Right. So this is a Bronx concerted effort of community based, and it not only includes B.R.A.G, but it also includes our other partners in the cure violence field. In the city of New York, there are 23 cure violence programs. In the Bronx, there are numerous. So it's not just B.R.A.G, it's also SOS, Save Our Streets, SUV, Stand Up to Violence, RTG, Release the Grip. And so we partner with each other on a regular basis. They're in other precincts, in the hot zones in those precincts. So we partner, we work together, we use the same cure violence model. But in addition to that, we also have the families that are affected by gun violence. We also have, obviously, the district attorney's office. We also have Guns Down, Life Up, which is an initiative to bring that attention, in particular, the hospitals, because that's where they take the victims in. And so during the summer, you'll see marches in numerous areas. The areas that particularly suffer from this tremendous contagion of gun violence and violence in general. And we will be out there making sure that the community stand up for themselves and that we have an impact. The community itself can have a major impact. I can give you statistics of our success, and they're pretty tremendous.
Right. I would love to see those, absolutely, but I'm pretty sure they are. So thank you for that. I also wanted to learn how B.R.A.G has been working through COVID-19. I know you've been doing monthly events, outreach, handing out masks and all that stuff. You've been out here on the streets still helping.
Absolutely. You know, when the pandemic hit, obviously our work is done in an outreach fashion. We're in the community on a regular basis, speaking to the mothers, the grandparents, the youth, the business improvement district owners. So when the pandemic hit, we had to make sure we take precautions. So we obviously decided to get ourselves trained to understand social distance and what it means to wear a mask, wash your hands, don't touch your eyes and your nose. The city provided us with PPEs, so we're constantly distributing masks, hand sanitizers, postcards that give you information on what to do and also where to find resources.
Right. Oh, thank you for that. I also wanted to discuss, David, this wasn't on our list of discussions that I sent over, but just about how times have kind of changed. So like back in the day, I'm not that old, but like back in the day, I used to be able to like rely on neighbors, or almost like neighbors had my back and had the youth's back. But a lot of times today, we kind of just like, you know, everybody's minding their business and there's not a lot of like mentorship. What is a message that you can send out to like, you know, it takes a village to raise a child, basically, and stop things like gun violence from happening in our communities?
You're absolutely right. In that press conference that we had when I had an opportunity to speak, you know, I explained the message that we're in hospitals, we're in schools, you know, we're intrinsically involved in the neighborhood. But I also had a message out there for the little homies and the big homies, getting them to understand that there was a time when it was off limits. Women and children were off limits. Playgrounds were off limits. Churches, shopping districts. And that was my message. My message is because they're influencers, right? And this is where our credibility comes in. When we talk, we look like them, talk like them, walk like them, eat the same foods, live where they live. That's where we hire the staff from those highly impacted areas. And so they'll listen to us probably quicker than they would someone from law enforcement, right? It has been proven. Okay, so when the time comes, they have to understand that, you know, in that particular shooting, you're putting a gun out the window of a vehicle and you're looking at the individual who's your target, but he's walking with his little girl.
Right.
I lived right around the corner from where that happened. Family members of mine went to Taft High School, which is that block right there.
Right.
So times have changed. So now the message is, come see us. They all know who we are. We've been doing this for the last 6 years. We're not going anywhere anytime soon. We're located in the Fordham area, right between the two areas that we service, goes up to Cambridge, down to 183rd, from the concourse to Jerome Avenue. And then in the North Bronx, we're up there on Bronx. So we'll be right between Edenwald and White Plains Road and 227. Like, you'll find us there. We work late at night. Come see us. Give us a call. If you have a young person that maybe is involved in these high-risk activities, we're ready to help them. If family needs help, we have all measures of wraparound services from employment, education, training. We have a music recording studio because they think they're going to be the next hip-hop superstar. But we can also try to get those jobs that are behind those superstars in production and music sound. We've been featured on BET. We have a lot of resources for them. So please come see us.
See, I love that. It's a one-stop shop for everything, for support, mentorship, resources, everything. So thank you so much, David, for sharing more about B.R.A.G. And I really hope that, you know, something can change in our communities and that people start to just work together to dismantle this gun violence that's ravishing our lives.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to send the message out. Appreciate your work. Anytime you need us, just give us a call.
Absolutely. You have a friend in us as well. Thank you. Folks,
Thank
to
you.
learn more and support B.R.A.G., please follow them at B.R.A.G_GSS on Instagram. And you can visit goodshepherds.org/program/B.R.A.G. for more information. Open BXRx will be right back.